We are the printing charity. For almost 200 years, we have been providing practical, emotional, and financial support for people in print, paper, packaging, publishing, and graphics, whenever we are needed, throughout careers and into retirement. We know life doesn't always go to plan. Our free confidential employee helpline provides in-the-moment emotional support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We provide grants to help people in our sectors who are struggling with an unexpected expense or everyday essentials, whether they're in work, unemployed, or retired. And we signpost people to specialist resources and services when needed. Our retirement living is for people of reduced financial means who are retired from our sectors. They're friendly, welcoming, and supportive almshouse communities where help is on hand if it's needed. And through our annual Rising Star Awards, we provide training and development grants to help the industry's emerging talent shine, equipping them with the skills they need to build a successful career in our vibrant, ever-evolving industry. From practical and emotional help to financial assistance, supporting skills development and retirement living. Remember, we're here for you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name's Peter, and I'm from the Printing Charity, which I hope by now you know is your occupational charity here to support everyone who works in the sector on a range of issues from mental health and wellbeing right the way through to practical advice and support on a range of issues, including financial wellbeing, which is what we're here to talk about today. January can be a tough month when it comes to money. Obviously, we've just had Christmas, which can be incredibly expensive. And if you're paid monthly, that gap between the December payday and the January one can feel like a long time, something I can attest to. And of course, some of us may even made some New Year's resolutions about managing our finances better this year. So here at the Printing Charity, we're keen to support you in that endeavour. Our helpline is here not only to support you 24/7 for emotional support, but it's also available to provide practical advice on a range of money and debt issues. And to that end, we've partnered with experts at PayPlan to provide some expert advice, top tips to keep your financial well-being in check this January. And that's what this webinar is going to focus on. What I would say in terms of this webinar is if it does prompt any questions or you've got any questions as a result of what you hear, please do drop them into the question and answer box, which can be found next to the chat box. And whilst we may not have time to answer them live in this session, we'll ensure that we get those answered and distributed across to all attendees. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Anthony Price from PayPlan. Anthony's got more than 20 years experience in money and debt advice, and he's going to lead us through the next 25 minutes or so. So Anthony, over to you.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you for having me. Lovely to be here today. Great to see so many people already logging on. We're nearly at 60, so that's wonderful. As just explained, I've been in the debt advice and money sector for 20 years. And one thing I know after 20 years is that even after that many years, we're still the same. We don't talk enough about money as a society. And so that's why I'm so pleased to be here and why I'm so pleased to see so many people logged on, because the more we can talk about this, the more we can feel comfortable with our money and just trying to really help us to make the most of our finances and money day by day. Today's session, financial wellbeing, really topical. There's, January is always great to look at this, but any time of year, there'll be things that I'm going to talk about today that you can just implement and think about throughout the year ahead and the years ahead as well. And whether you're here for yourself to take away information and use that, or maybe you're here to take away information for somebody else, then great. Welcome to all of you. I'm sure you'll all have something that you can use from this session today. I'm going to be talking about lots of different things in quite a short period of time. So feel free to take some notes, but I will be putting some links into the chat at the end of the session as well, referencing some of the points that I've made. And also we can share the content from the session with you if you want to ask for that. So we'll share lots of information with you. The reason why I think this is so important right now is because, let's face it, we're all feeling the pinch financially at the moment. Um, all of us are experiencing lots of costs going up at the same time. If you just look at this image here, and if I think about myself, I know my council tax has gone up, gas and electric has gone up, my mobile phone went up this last 12 months. Food, if I go into the supermarket, it only seems like a few months ago when I thought that's gone up, that's gone up. Whereas now I just accept that it's all gone up. My mortgage has gone up, my travel, and that's just me. And there's just a few, half a dozen just to start with. And I won't be unique. That's the same for all of us. A lot of us will be experiencing lots of different costs going up at the same time. And if it was just one cost going up in isolation, it was just one cost at this moment in time that was increasing, that may be manageable. We may be able to deal with that. But when it's multiple costs, that's when perhaps we start to feel that pressure, those financial pinches, so to speak, and why today will hopefully be useful. And I'm going to go through lots of tips and things that you can take away, and they are aiming to give you more confidence around money management and help you to look at ways to maximize your income, ways to reduce your costs if that's something that you want and need to do, and just help you to make your money go further. That's the real aim of today. Now, before I go into the top tips, I'll just kind of set the scene and say we'll go through lots of things today, but don't feel that you need to do everything all in one go. Nothing wrong with just taking one step at a time. How about giving a go at one particular thing that I'd recommend today, implementing that, putting that into motion, really doing it well, mastering that as a skill, and then move on to the next one and master that as a skill and build up and build up and build up. Nothing wrong with that, because trying to do too much at once can sometimes be quite overwhelming. Having said that, maybe you're a multitasker. I take my hat off to you if you are. Then great, do as many of these as you can cope with at any one time. The real thing that I'm saying here is find a way that works for you. That's so important when it comes to finances and managing your money. What works for me won't work for you necessarily, and vice versa. So find a way that you're comfortable with. So let's start to think about some of the top tips that you can focus on. Some of these will seem quite simple. That's very deliberate, because it's often the simple things in life that we don't necessarily give the time to, or we don't put time aside to think about. So how about we do that in January and into February? And the first thing I always talk about, and it's a question I put to groups that I talk with, but also to myself on a regular basis, and that is, how well do you really know your finances? Is it something that you feel you've got a good control over, or is it something that you've not really looked at recently? And maybe if I was to ask you, where's all of your money going each month? Maybe you'd struggle to answer that. It's really useful to get back to basics when it comes to budgeting and looking at your household spending. So how do we do that? Well, I'm going to talk about a few different options that you could think about here, and just to talk about why it's so important, really. When it comes to making a household budget, maybe you've never done this before. How about giving it a go today? Or maybe you did it, but it wasn't, it was a while ago. It hasn't been very recent that you've done that. How about looking at that in January, and then getting used to doing this on a regular basis? Because the reality is things are changing constantly at the moment when it comes to costs in particular. Things are going up and changing day by day, month by month. So it's something to do on a regular basis. And I can say with experience of working with people who look at budgeting over the last 20 years, most people that come to us and have never done this, once they've tried it, they often feel a lot more comfortable with their money and feel happy that they can understand where their money's going or what they need to do to make changes if they need to do that. So lots of ways that you could do this. Maybe it's getting right back to basics, get a blank piece of paper and a pen and start making those lists, listing out what kind of income you've got coming in, thinking about income from job, self-employed income, benefits, pension income from non-dependents that might be living with you. What does all of that look like on a monthly basis? Then also doing everything in the same way, but with your outgoings as well, your expenses. So you could just do back to basics. One of the things I often recommend to people, though, is to use some form of a budget planner. And these are really handy because they'll give you a bit of a structure, but they'll also prompt you to think about certain things that you may be spending on that could easily slip off the radar. So what could you use? I'm going to bring a few of these on the screen here, and I will be sharing some links how to access these later on as well. This is one option that you could think about, a budget planner like this. Sorry, it's just flipped off the screen and bring that back up. There you go. Really colourful, just a nice PDF printout document. So you could either print this out and start to fill it in with pen, or you can type into it and then print it off later. So you could put information into it and fill it in as you go. Income at the top, as you can see, so you put in all of your income from wherever you've got that coming in from. And at the bottom here, you can see that you can then add that up as a total. And then you can do things in the same way with your expenses. And you can see we've sectioned this off. So giving you an idea of things that perhaps you will need to pay every month, come what may, other things that you may be able to cut back on, and other things you'll definitely be able to cut back on. So just giving you that kind of idea of where to make a start and how to lay things out. And then you can make a total of what your expenses are, and then also work out what that shows you at the end of the month. Is that showing that you've got plenty of income to cover all of your outgoings and you've got money left over at the end of the month? That's great. That's a really positive place to be, but we can still perhaps make improvements to make that money go even further. Or perhaps it's showing that you're just about breaking even. You've got just enough to cover your expenses, but there's no real wriggle room. Again, what can we do to improve that? Or maybe it shows that there's more going out than what's coming in at the moment. So I don't have enough to pay all of my bills. And maybe we need to do something at a quicker pace to address that. Maybe we need to look at that more urgently. Again, it will show what that picture looks like. And this is really useful just to see, where does the land lay at the minute? What does that currently tell me? And what do I need to do to make improvements? The other thing with this is it's quite colourful, it's easy to look at, it's easy to read. This can be really useful if you've got children, certainly children that are, growing up and into adolescence. Really good for them to start looking at money and budgeting. So this could be used by family maybe. So think about it in the wider audience in your family, not just for you. So that's one idea that you could use. Another option, and again, we can send this to you, is you could use a spreadsheet to help you with this. So this is another resource that we have, really simple. So you could just put in there some figures, and you can see at the bottom, it's already starting to add all of this up for us. Really simple, but I'm a big believer on using something that takes away some of the time, makes things easier, because as you can see, that's adding these up as we go along and then gives you that information really, really quickly. It's just another thing to make life a little simpler and a bit quicker so we can, make the most of our time. Time is important for all of us. So there's another option for you. So gives you some idea of what to think about, gives you a structure to work towards. So how about using one of these or looking at what's available online, because there's lots of different options out there as well. When it comes to filling this in, really important to, yes, start with your income. That will take you less time because we won't have as many items coming in terms of income. So get all of that listed in. When it comes to outgoings, maybe start by looking at your regular direct debits and standing orders. Maybe getting a copy of your bank statement or your online banking open and get all of those regular payments that go out every month. Get those in. That's an easier place to start. But also think about those costs that you pay for on a yearly basis or a 6 monthly basis or a quarterly basis. For me in December, it's always car MOT, car servicing. It's all of those things that need to be paid for in that particular month. But it's really important that I understand how much that's going to cost me in the year ahead, so I can then divide that by 12. How much is that going to cost me per month? And getting that put into the budget planner as well. Because although I'm not paying for it monthly, I do need to set money aside for that, so I'm not caught out at the end of the year when those bills are due and I've got a nasty surprise and a bill that I'm struggling to pay. So what about those figures? And it doesn't have to be car, for me it is, but what about, could be a boiler service maybe that you've got a payment for once a year. So what are those costs that you need to cover? And then also thinking about those pay-as-you-go costs, maybe those kind of daily costs. It could be things that you pay for on cash or just pay-as-you-go costs, in the moment, just part of daily life. Those are really important to put in because they can add up quite quickly. I did this session a little while ago for somebody who said, oh, would that include me going and buying a coffee on the way into work? I said, absolutely. Those are the kind of pay-as-you-go costs that I'm really talking about here. I said, tell me a little bit about what you do. And she said, well, I get a coffee. I only do it 2 times a week. I don't do it every day, a couple of times a week, and cost me £3.50 a go. I said, okay, great. Have you thought about how much that's costing you per year? And she said, well, no, I just look at it as I go. It's not something I think about yearly. I just pay as I go, which is very true for a lot of us, of course. I said, well, that's actually £364 a year on grabbing your coffee in the way into work. And she was really surprised, and she said, wow, okay, that's got me thinking. I hadn't thought about it in that kind of level. And she said, £3.50 doesn't really mean a lot to me, but £364 over a year, that could be paid towards a holiday or paid towards my water bill or whatever it is that I might want to pay for. It's a really useful exercise looking at things yearly because it becomes more meaningful and it helps you to make decisions. And I'm not saying that that person that I spoke to should stop getting her coffee. Not at all. If she enjoys doing it and she can afford to do it, keep doing it. But it does give you a good understanding of where your money's going and whether you're happy with that. Or would you rather spend it elsewhere? Is it better going on a holiday? Is it better going on stuff for the house? Is it better paying for bills or for the children? Whatever it might be. Helps you to make really good decisions. So knowing your finances, a really good place to start because it will give you some more confidence about what your current situation is and what you can do to change that if you need to. The next top tip on here is getting the balance right. And this is a really quick point, but it's really important because if you are looking to cut back on your costs, and you might go away after today's session and think, yeah, I'm going to have a go at some of that. I'm going to reduce that. I'm going to cut that cost here, cancel this. That's great, but don't do it to such a level that it almost becomes a painful exercise and it becomes hard work. I often think about this the same as being on quite an extreme diet. You could cut out everything that you love to eat and drink, on a monthly basis. You could get some very quick results and some dramatic results from doing that. But is it manageable in the long term? Is it going to become uncomfortable? Are you going to have to make sacrifices like seeing your friends and socializing? So make it work for you. Make sure you get the balance right. The next point that I always talk about to people when it comes to financial well-being is making sure that you understand your credit report and what it can do for you. A lot of people I speak to about credit reports will often say, oh, you mean a credit score? And actually, credit scores are part of credit reporting, but it's just part of it. There's a lot of other things that you can use on credit reports to help you financially. So I'll just spend a little bit of time talking about credit reporting here. Some of you will be very used to credit reporting, so great if you are somebody that's used to that. For those of you that are less familiar, if you don't know what a credit report is a report of your financial health that you can access at any point. There are three main companies across the UK that hold this information, this financial information about each and every one of us. And that information just sits there unless we access it or if we give somebody else permission to access it. An example might be if I apply for a mortgage, I will have to give a mortgage lender permission to access my credit report so they can understand what my financial health looks like, and then they can make a decision of whether they're going to lend me money or not. So unless you know what's on there, you don't really know what your current state of play is with your financial status, your financial health. So it's really important to look at your credit reports to get that information. Sometimes it can be rare, certainly, but sometimes there can also be errors on credit reports. And it's important to therefore look at your credit report to see if there are any errors, because you may need to get them corrected if that's the case. Now, I recommend people to look at their credit report every month. I do that myself. I'm not saying if you've never looked at your credit report, I'm not saying you've got to do that straight away, but maybe make that your mission over time. Start to get into a really good habit of looking at your credit report on a regular basis, because then you can spot changes as soon as possible. And it's really important that you check across all three companies that provide this information because they all work slightly differently. So if you're only looking at one, you won't be getting all of the information that's available to you. Now, you might be sat there thinking, well, I'm not really bothered about looking at this because I don't need to borrow or I don't want to borrow. And that's a really good point. But actually, it's not just about borrowing money. It's about lots of other things day to day in life. For example, if you need to go and get a new tenancy agreement, if you're renting, A lot of landlords now will ask for a copy of your credit report. And if that's not in a good state, if you've not got it where you want it to be, that might lead to you getting rejected. So again, that's not about borrowing, but it's about day-to-day living. If you want to look at getting an insurance product, or you want to get a phone contract, or it might be something of that kind of description in terms of everyday spends, a lot of decisions will be made on whether you can have those products based on your credit report. So it's not just about borrowing, it's about everyday living. And of course, we don't know what's in the future. We might need to borrow down the line at some point. We might want a mortgage in 5 years' time. So it might not be a priority now, but later it may be. If we don't know what it currently looks like, how do we know to improve it if we need to improve it? But also the opposite. If it looks really healthy at the moment, how do I keep it looking healthy? How do I keep it in a good state? So really useful to look at these particular credit reports. Now, there are lots of different ways to get your credit report. You could get it sent in the post. You could go on a website. The easiest, cheapest, and quickest way to get it is by downloading all of the three apps that are available to you through your app store, through your mobile or tablet. You can get that downloaded within a matter of minutes, and then you could get your credit report for life. And you'll get that each month. Now, the three apps that you want to download, and again, we'll put these on the chat later on as well, but the three apps are Experian, ClearScore, and Credit Karma. So those are the three apps that we recommend. Now, when you download and sign up to those credit report apps, the first thing you will see is your credit score. So that will be often the first thing you'll see. Now, for anyone, again, that's not familiar with credit scoring, the way I describe it is like a barometer of health. You'll get your number, so your particular score, out of a total that's available. So I'll give you an example. On Experian, they will give you a score out of 999. So you might log on and you might see your credit score is 600 out of 999 that's available. What that's immediately telling you is that it's in quite a good place, but there's still a way to go to get to the top. So what do I need to do to get higher and higher up that ladder? Similarly, ClearScore work in a similar way, but they have a score out of 1,000. So they work different to Experian. Experian's 999, ClearScore 1,000. And again, Credit Karma slightly different again. That doesn't matter. They are slightly different, but really the essence of it is the same. The higher up the ladder you go, the higher number you are, the healthier your score is, the healthier your financial situation is, the better your financial health. The lower score, the lower your health is financially. And the lower your score, the less likely you are to be approved for credit, mortgages. It could be for a bank account, for a tenancy, for those insurances, those telecoms products. So there's good reasons to try and get this increased and for it to be as good as it can be. In terms of getting up the score, the great thing about the apps are that they will recommend to you things that you can do or things you can focus on to improve your credit score. So it'll say things you want to focus on are this, this, and this. But also, it will tell you what you're doing well in. If you logged onto your credit report today and it said you had 999 out of 999, that's brilliant. But how do I keep it at that level is equally as important. So they'll give you tips of what you should focus on, but also what you're already doing really well in and what to keep doing. So again, gives you those hints. There are some things that we can do generally as well. I mean, these apps will give you personalized tips of what you should focus on, because what I need to focus on may be different to what someone else needs to focus on. But there are some things that you can do. For example, being registered to vote, that would normally give you 50 points straight away. Not using all of your credit limit that's available. Staying under 25% is normally the golden rule. That would normally give you 90 points from doing that. So focusing on these kind of things, really, really key. These credit report apps will also really help you to focus on how to get first approvals if you are looking to borrow. So if you need to borrow for a car or if it's a credit card, what you want to do is be able to get a yes immediately. And what they'll do is tell you who you're more likely to get an application approved through. So they can really give you some good steer on what to do with your money. Also, make sure that you're shopping around for the best insurance products. This sounds like a very simple one, and it is something I'm sure that all of us know we need to do. If we take out a car insurance, our home insurance, a life insurance, a pet insurance, we know that we'll have that insurance product for a year, and at the end of that, we'll need to look at renewing it, either renewing it with who we're with currently, and they'll give us a new price for the next year ahead, and that will often increase year on year, or we need to shop around to see if we can get a cheaper deal from somewhere else. The reason why I mention this is because we're all human and we have very busy lives, and maybe sometimes we need to have a prompt to remind us to shop around, because sometimes the letter will come through the doormat the month before the renewal's due, and they'll say, this is what it's going to cost you for the next year if you stay with us, and it stays on the side, and we think, I'll do that tomorrow, I'll do that tomorrow. So do you need to have a prompt? So for me, I have something in my phone. It pops up a month before my insurance is due for renewal, and it reminds me to shop around. There are some really good websites to help you to do this. So comparison websites are really useful to look at. So the likes of comparethemarket.com, Money Supermarket, Go Compare, they will help you by asking you key questions about what you are looking for. So if it's a home insurance, they'll ask you information about the property, they'll ask you information about yourself, and then give you lots of different companies across the market and how much they're going to charge you, so you can look for a cheaper deal if there's one to be had. Do also remember that some insurance companies don't appear on comparison websites. So for example, my car insurance is with Direct Line. They never appear on comparison websites. So I always include them and look at them separately as well. And you might be thinking, is it really worth doing this? It takes about 10 minutes and it can sometimes save you a lot of money. And especially if you've got a home insurance, a car insurance, a pet insurance like I have, there's 3 insurances straight away. And if they all go up in 1 year, that's a lot of money. So shop around, make sure you're getting the cheaper deals. And also think about whether you've got any subscriptions at the moment that you're not using. You know, a lot of us took out subscriptions during the pandemic, whether it was a kind of a subscription on magazines, or whether it was health and wellbeing, or it might have been food and drink, or it might have been TV, you know, Netflix, Disney, especially if you had children. Are you using those at the moment? Are you using them as frequently? You know, it might not be about cancelling these, it might be about reducing the package down. The great thing with subscriptions is that they are charged on a month-by-month basis, and you can normally cancel them immediately. So if you need to free up some money, very easy to do that. Do you have a 0% credit card that you have a balance on, and maybe you've got 0% for a certain period of time on that credit card? When does that come to an end? You know, what's your plan of attack if it does come to an end and you've still got a balance on it and they're starting to charge you interest? Do you need to shop around to see if you can do a balance transfer? These different things can help. One that I particularly like talking about is savvy shopping. All of us have to shop, so there are some things that we can do to really focus on this. You know, my mum used to say to me, never go shopping without a shopping list, and never go shopping eating. And never go shopping hungry, because you'll grab the wrong things and you'll just want to eat. At the time, I probably rolled my eyes thinking, whatever, but very true. You know, those things are really important. But also understanding how to get good deals in the supermarkets. You know, a lot of the tricks they use try to lure you in. There's a reason why Lidl smells so good when you walk in. It's because they give you all of the baked goods aisle the minute you walked in. It's luring you in. But also, you know, thinking about how they present things at the end of an aisle. Multi-pack deals aren't always the cheapest. I went into Morrison's the other week and I saw a 20-pack. It was a double finger 20-pack of Kit Kats, whatever the price was. But if I looked around the corner, I could get 2 packs of 10 and it was cheaper. Same amount, but cheaper money. So the deals aren't always real deals. Also, great websites if you go online. And again, I can put these into the chat later on. But websites like Price Scanner, Price Spy, they are useful to help you to see whether what you're looking at to buy online is the cheapest way to get it. You know, you might be looking to buy a new TV or a gift for somebody. Is there a cheaper place to use online to get that? Also, a really good website I recommend is Camel. Very odd name, but that helps you to see if you can get cheaper deals on Amazon, and also tells you whether it was cheaper last month and whether it's worth holding out because it might reduce down. So using these different websites to get a good deal. And then an app that I love talking about is Too Good To Go. For anybody that hasn't used Too Good To Go, really useful app. You just simply put in your postcode once you've downloaded the app, and it will tell you who's selling off cheap food today that you can go and grab, because by the end of the day, it's going to go in the bin. So if I put my postcode in, it tells me about Morrison's, Harvester, Costa, Starbucks. Sometimes you can go and get a real good deal on a surprise bag that will be lots of different things for a very cheap amount. Other times it could be hot food. So think about what you could use to get a good deal. Make sure you're recognizing the signs as well of when your financial health might not be quite right. Maybe it's you're feeling more stressed and anxious about money. Maybe you've stopped opening your mail. So thinking about the signs as well. But equally look at boosting your income, making sure that you're making the most of your money. And one way that I really do recommend to do that is to make sure you do a yearly benefit check. I'm going to put a link into the chat in a few moments that will give you access to a free benefit check calculator. It's really important that we do this because a lot of people in the UK are missing out on benefits each and every year. If I give you a figure, this year, 8.4 million households are going to miss out on benefits. And that's the equivalent of £23 billion worth of benefits that will go unclaimed in this year. And often that's because people think, well, I work full time, I'm not entitled, or I don't have children, or I'm fit and healthy, so I won't be entitled. If that was the case, we wouldn't have so many benefits going unclaimed. It won't be available to everybody. You know, benefits aren't there for everyone, but if you don't check, you don't know what you're missing out on. So make sure you're doing that. And also thinking about cashback apps to also make money as well. So using these to go and buy something that you would have bought anyway, but going through a cashback app. I recommend two. So Top Cashback and Quidco, very, very useful. I used Quidco the other day. Instead of booking hotels.com directly, I went through the Quidco app. They took me to the hotels.com website. I booked it. I got a 10% cashback just from doing that. So there's different ways to make this kind of money work. And whatever you do, make sure that you budget well and look at your finances in a way that you're comfortable with. For example, are you with the best bank account? Is it helping you to manage your money? Are there better bank accounts that will help you to set up pots? So for example, I use Monzo that helps me to have my income paid into my main account. I then have pots for my car running costs, my groceries, my utilities, and each month I put money aside in those. So then I'm not spending it before those bills are due. That wasn't available with my main high street bank. So it's worth shopping around to look at your banks to see if they can work hard enough for you and just to make sure you're using your money really well. Now, that was a whistle-stop tour and a few points to take away. So I'm not expecting everybody to take all of that and digest it all. We'll send you the details as well so you can look at it. And also, you know, making sure that even if you just look at one of those tips, have a go at it. And the one I'd recommend is definitely looking at your budgeting as a starting point. I'll just leave you this video and then we'll just wrap up the session.
Anyone can face unexpected financial hardship at any time. And at the Printing Charity, we want people working in print, paper, packaging, graphics, publishing, and the allied trades to have somewhere to turn if this is the case. Our financial assistance is here to help people in our sectors if they're faced with an unexpected expense or find everyday essentials unaffordable. Whether they're in work, unemployed, or retired. Along with help for day-to-day living costs, we can fund mobility support, health and wellbeing, household goods, bereavement support, housing, home repairs, and white goods. Information and help for financial problems and questions is available through our free, confidential, and independent helpline. Information and advice specialists are on hand Monday to Friday between 8 AM and 8 PM to help people find a way through the situation they find themselves in. The helpline can also provide free, expert debt help from specialists pay plan and signpost to other specific resources and services when needed. And we all know that money worries can have a huge impact on mental well-being. So the helpline is here for in-the-moment emotional support, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Everyone's situation is unique, and we also know that it's not easy to talk about money. But help towards financial peace of mind starts with a conversation. We're here to help meet the needs of people in print through practical, emotional, and financial support. And our friendly team is on hand to make starting that conversation as comfortable as possible. Please take the first step and get in touch. We're here for you.
Thank you, Anthony. That's really great. And that was a really interesting and insightful 25 minutes. I think I've learned a few things, so I hope other people have too. So before I say goodbye and let everyone go back to their lunch break, I'd just like to leave you with that one key message, and that is that the Printing Charity is your occupational charity. So please do make use of us and the support that we can offer. Whether that be emotional support, which is accessible 24/7 for our helpline number, which is the number that's on the screen. If you're struggling with anything to do with your well-being, please just take 5 minutes to call the helpline, speak to one of our advisors and see if we can help. You've got nothing to lose but 5 minutes of your time. It's totally free, totally independent of your employer and completely confidential. And as the video said, if you're struggling with your finances or if you're facing an unexpected or unaffordable cost, please remember that not only can we provide that advice, we may also be able to provide some financial assistance or a grant to get you out of a tough situation. So please do call us and have a conversation to see what we can do. If you've got any colleagues that weren't able to join today, or you think they'd be interested to learn more about what we do, please do get them to have a look at our website, to follow us on social media. We'll be making a video of this webinar available to watch back, and we'll share the slides and the top tips that Anthony's mentioned and some of the links he's mentioned in an email out to you all. So finally, just leaves me to say thank you for joining us today. Thank you for giving up some of your lunch hour to listen, and thank you for joining.